what pretty much happens when you get a Republican in office? They're not fans of big government, right? So those are two bureaucracies that they decided to bring up, but they also wanted to get rid of the FBI. You heard Ramaswamy talk about this a lot. His one of his potential running mates. They want to get rid of the ATF, the FDA, and a lot of people really don't understand how a lot of these organizations work, and all of the dark things that they do. Like, uh, let's just say FDA for instance, right? They're and according to them, anything that is proven to cure a disease is considered a drug. So they were trying to at one point say that Cheerios, even vitamin C, would be considered drugs because it's proven to cure disease. So you have silly that happen. The EPA has stifled many projects. If you look in like Asia or something, if they want to put something up, they put it up. But there's a whole bunch of red tape and usually these bureaucracies that are just in the way of most of our production. And it's more of a hindrance to us than it is any help. And it doesn't mean that there won't be any regulation at all. It just means that if you're watching what's happening right now with what the Supreme Court is doing for most things, they're saying, all right, we'll leave things up to the states. So it'll be up to your state to regulate these things. It won't be a useless bureaucracy overseeing places that are, it's like double government. We already have state officials and everything. We don't need federal on top of that to manage it all over again. It's redundant. So, you probably want to locate in yourself in a state that is conducive to what you want in your life, but that's about it, right? Because we don't need all of these people, and as much debt as we have, we're trillions of dollars in debt. So some type of eradication of most of these bureaucracies would actually be a good thing for our tax dollars. That's how we would actually be taxed less. And if you notice, normally when Republicans are in power, you are taxed less because they're not wasting a bunch of dollars on things that we really don't need. That micromanaging is just silly. And you have to understand also, like, I definitely don't want to just gloss over those dark things. There's so much nonsense that they do. Like, let's just say electric cars. I see you touched on that, Cloud. It's crazy. People don't understand that it takes like 10 years at least to equate to the carbon footprint of an actual internal combustion engine, right? And not only that, we haven't even gotten into what's going to happen with the disposal of these dangerous lithium ion batteries in a few years. We haven't even started to talk about that. And the one thing they never really tell you is that most of the energy used to create and keep these electric vehicles running are sourced from coal, oil, everything else that we're already using, right? That we're saying is so dirty in the first place, right? So they're not making any sense here. If you were to ask me, I would just say you have the right people put money in the right people's pocket, and that's just politics for you. We just have to start doing our own research. We have to look beyond surface levels sometimes and then come up with your own decisions. If that's a decision that you would come up with afterward, great. But you can tell just from, what the lady was saying, she's really just trying to amp people up. She didn't go into depth of anything. What was you going to say, Mark? I see your finger keep going up. Pause.
So in 1969, the Cuyahoga River in Ohio became so polluted that it caught fire. The fire spurred an avalanche of water pollution and control activities, such as the Clean Water Act and the Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement. By bringing national attention to water pollution, was one of the first events that led to the creation of the EPA. The Environmental Protection Agency is literally there to protect the environment. If you don't have any regulation, or you allow corporations to determine what's the appropriate measure for waste dump, this is what will happen. It's not like the industries of capitalism is centered around doing what's best for mankind. It's a budget and a profit line item. So if it makes more sense to dump this in Lake Michigan and it's cheaper, they'll dump it in Lake Michigan, no matter what the chemical is. Drinking water, who be damned, all of that stuff be damned. The only thing that matters is how can you increase your profit margin. Like, so does
what you're saying makes sense, but that assumes that the state that the person that company is in has no regulation.
We never
so
said
it's
no
like we're
regulation.
assuming
We
that
said
the EPA
states
means
would
no
regulate.
regulation. Exactly. Then on top of that, it's like, again, what you're saying, there absolutely has to be somebody regulating our water and things like that, right? But the EPA is a federal bureau. Like, they're not on a state level actually putting in the work. They're just kind of laying down red tape and regulations from a distance, but I don't think they actually see how those regulations affect the actual industries that they put the regulations on. And that's where the problem comes.
So, Clout, I agree with your point earlier about regulation hurts, especially small businesses, right? Because a lot of the startup capital that it takes to get going can get eaten up initially trying to get through the red tape and hurdles. That's a valid point. That's an issue with, like, most bureaucracies when you have so many levels of red tape. However, the same way like the federal government can come in and investigate the police departments to root out something like what was them gangs they found in California? Oversight for oversight. It needs to be somebody watching the people that's supposed to be watching us, because they can be infiltrated, can be bribed, and then you'll have the money, instead of going to the pipes that should have went to the right places in Flint, they'll take that money and spend it elsewhere because there's no regulation on it. And next thing you know, you got lead water and nobody drink the water for 2-3 years.
Yeah, but Marcus,
the same thing happened.
Marcus, the reason why you mentioned Flint, it's interesting that you mentioned that. It's the red tape from the EPA is the reason why Flint was a failure. If Michigan would have had the oversight of their own state to be able to handle what the crisis of that water in Flint, then it would have got fixed way faster. But because of the EPA and the red tape and the problem and the bureaucracy that they had, that's the reason why our brothers and sisters in Michigan was suffering, because of that Flint shit. So when you say, I get it. You know, the EPA was started in 1970, and what happened in 1969, and that kind of, we need regulation, and we need somebody to regulate the regulators. We need oversight of the government. What you're saying is, and that's classic liberal thinking. We need somebody to watch. We need the big government to watch the smaller government of the states, and assuming that the smaller people of the states who actually live there don't know what they're doing. They need somebody in Washington to tell the people that's in Boise, Idaho, how to and what to do in Boise, Idaho, and they don't. None of them live in Boise, Idaho, and the people in Boise, Idaho, the people in Anchorage, Alaska, ain't smart enough to handle their own stuff.
I think the issue isn't that they're not smart enough. There's plenty of intelligent people all around the country. But the issue boils
the topic.
The issue boils down to
you guys got off the topic.
No, we'll swing it back, Kenny. We'll swing it back. Go ahead, finish, Marcus.
Yeah, the issue boils down to, can those institutions be corrupted? And they're just setting a guideline, a framework. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect or it works perfectly, because there's issues with almost every government agency, federal, state, or local in any way. There are issues there. Can it be refined? Can some red tape be removed? Can they have oversight and to get some of that stuff removed so it's not a waste of money? I'm with you on all of that. But I'm saying, if you have a politician, right, in charge of a specific agency, that agency can funnel money to someplace else. Like we was just talking about the super mayor, right? It took the federal government to come in and audit them in order to hold her accountable. Say you have a situation
else, Marcus, you got to bring it back.
It's still in the same
Project 25.
We're talking about the EPA.
No, the initial question was regarding Project 25, where Clout went on the tangent about said women without really addressing what Project 25 was.
Okay, well, let us know what Project 25 is.
Yeah, I know.
She didn't focus on Project 25 in that video. Yeah. Like she brushed on it, but she talked more about Trump.
No, I got you. And Kenny, why interrupt him? We'll swing it back. I just said that we'll swing it back. Let him finish.
My bad, Shannon, but we went four topics out. I just wanted to make sure. I apologize. I digress.
I got you. That's what we do. We'll be bright. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. So we'll swing it back to Project 25. Were you done, Marcus?
I can't even remember.
Marcus.
That's all right. I got a short memory. Sometimes I'll be. So if y'all want to get into Project 25, let's go for it.
No, so the whole thing is like the woman was talking. We were talking about big government, you know, and you know, and just to wrap up the Flint thing, because she, you know, we're talking the EPA, we're talking the Department of Education. That's why I think Trump was saying getting rid of both of those. That's what was in the video, and that's why we were discussing it. And I hear what you're saying, Marcus. You know, we got to have somebody to watch over certain things, but sometimes when you say corrupt at the state level, what about the corruption at the federal level? Like, where does it stop? Where does corruption stop? And in my personal opinion, and maybe it's just me because I'm conservative, I think it's better that we regulate smaller and closer home than to have a whole bunch of motherfuckers and assuming and praying that everybody's doing good. That's just me.
What's interesting about what y'all saying is politics has become entertainment. And it's an unfortunate reality that we're dealing with. So a lot of the stuff that we're speaking to, it just becomes a talking point. And there aren't anything, there's not much that is done about it. And it's an unfortunate reality. We have a bunch of people who, one way or the other, they're just on a team. And whether their team is Republican, whether their team is Democrat, it really doesn't matter. But the point is that we're losing sight of actually getting things done or resolutions. To your point, Shan, because we're not locally doing it, but power is intoxicating. And unless we identify those who are intoxicated by that power when they get it and hold them accountable, we're just talking in circles.
That's a bar. That's a bar.